And I graduated from high school, of course, in '58, the year before, when Donna came out. So I was intrigued. Donna was a classic, still is, for all the teenagers. And it's a quintessential love story for lovesick teenagers. No idea that I was going to meet the creator of the song at that time. But I knew La Bamba, from, again, I'm a Chicano, and so we grew up with La Bamba. But not the way that Richie played it. He took it into the rock and roll stratosphere with his opening lick. And so when it came out, I had to say, who is this guy, singing our song, singing our music? Richie Valens, I thought, he sounds Italian. Because, the Italians were big in the 50s, right? They were the greasers. And they were the singers, from Sinatra on the way down. And you couldn't, there wasn't a Chicano at all, anywhere within sight in the rock and roll world. So it was amazing to me that suddenly here's La Bamba. And I had a friend of mine who became a compadre, and he used to play the guitar, so we used to go to all the parties. So that became our calling card. And he used to play the Bamba, I used to sing with him, and we used to, play with the girls, dancing and stuff. Well, I started dancing with the girls, he started playing and saying, hey, vente pa acá, you're leaving me here all alone. But the fact is that the popularity of the song was an opening key. I found that we could go to college parties and sing La Bamba and be very popular instantly, So all of that happened after February 3rd, 1959, but it was memorable to me at the time and still is. And maybe that's when the seed was planted that somebody had to tell the story. When the obituaries came out, they said his name was really Richard Valenzuela, Richard Stephen Valenzuela. So I said, I'm from Pacoima, which is in LA. And I thought, wow, he's a Chicano. So at that time, I was still a math and physics major at San Jose State. But the following year, I switched majors to English with an emphasis on playwriting. And I began to look for stories that I could tell. And La Bamba was just sitting there. I just wouldn't arrive to it for another 30 years or something. But the fact is that it's my pleasure to be here with you, Stephanie, and I'm so grateful to the El Paso Film Festival. What a glorious temple of art and culture you have here. You can be proud. This is world class. They tell me that it's yes, absolutely. Big hand. I congratulate all of you that work on the committee to preserve this. The city of El Paso preserved this treasure for the whole nation. But at the same time, I was told that it was inspired by Toledo. And I'll tell you this little anecdote. When my wife Lupe Trujillo Valdez is in the house here somewhere. And I've been called the father of Chicano theater. She's the mother, actually, as it turns out. But she's been part of the teatro since 1968, so she's one of the founding members. In any case, in '87, when we went on our world tour to screen La Bamba at various festivals, we were in Spain, obviously in Madrid. And I was tied up with the press corps. At the hotel, they kept me going, man, all day with the press coming in. Actually, I addressed all of them, the whole press corps. And I said, as a Chicano, me da mucho gusto estar aquí de nuevo, to be here again after 500 years, the genes, And I said, además, también, I just want to tell you, as a Chicano, los perdono, I forgive you, But anyway, Lupe went to Toledo. While I was dealing with the press corps, she went and saw the real Toledo. So I missed out. I didn't have time to go to Toledo. So it's one way to come back through El Paso here to Toledo, and be here. So I want to thank you for that. El Paso sits right in the middle del corazón de América, man. There's a line that goes directly from Tenochtitlan all the way to Santa Fe. And it is a road that has been traveled by human beings, our ancestors, not for just 500 years, but thousands of years. The mound builders in the East Coast, those came through here, okay? So I'm very aware of that as a Chicano. I'm very proud of that connection with the history of the human race. But it is this particularly pleasure for me to be here then, otra vez, en El Paso del Norte. Qué suave, hermano. Adelante!
We're so happy to have you. So I wanted to get back to La Bamba, and you alluded to how you came about telling the story of Richie Valens, but was there something that sparked it at that time in the 1980s?
Well, yes, there was, before La Bamba, there was Zoot Suit. And we got to Broadway, to the Winter Garden Theater. Now, Winter Garden is a grand old lady, 1,500 seats, on Broadway. So it was quite a stretch, go from there. We had been in New York with El Teatro Campesino a few years before, 67. We did one night in a 2,000 seat theater and packed it. Now we were doing Huelga Actos, we're coming directly from the Great Strike and supporting the Great Boycott. So we packed it. It was social workers striking on the balcony floor, and anyway, it was an amazing event. But to come back all those years later and to take on the Winter Garden was a big challenge, But the fact is that the question here.
How did you come?
How did you come?
How do you come to
We
get
were
into
on Broadway then with Zoot Suit, and the dressing room. The Winter Garden Theater sits between Broadway and 7th Avenue. It straddles the whole block. And my brother Daniel Valdez, who's again an artist, you've seen him in La Bamba, you've seen him in Zoot Suit. He was one of the producers of the play, and so we were there in his dressing room, just opening night, on the 2nd floor, looking over 7th Avenue. The theaters on Broadway were in the 7th Avenue, the back part of the theater. And we were pretty full of ourselves. We made it to Broadway. Aquí trajimos, Zoot Suit. And we should do, that was the 40s, we should do the 50s. What can we do with the 50s? And at that moment, as we asked ourselves, what's next? We heard music coming from down below. We looked out the window, and down below on 7th Avenue, there were mariachis. And they were playing toward the window, toward us. We didn't know at the time these mariachis had been sent by the President of Mexico to celebrate us on opening night. We looked out, and they were playing a song that was very familiar, that answered our questions as to what to do next. They were playing La Bamba.
Wow.
And so from then on, my brother Daniel took on the task of tracking down the family and trying to get the rights. He couldn't find anybody, they were gone. They disappeared from LA after Richie died in Pacoima, so he searched, couldn't find them. But then we live in a little mission town in California, in the Monterey Bay area, called San Juan Bautista, and there's a Daisy Saloon there, that's favored by the bikers. So one day somebody came over to Danny's and he said, hey, Richie Valens' brother is in the bar. He's at Daisy Saloon. So Danny rushed over there, our hometown, he rushed over there and met Bob Morales. And then from there we met his mother, Connie. They lived in Watsonville, we're 15 minutes away. And so that was, we nailed it. We invited Danny's agent. He had a musical producer that was called Taylor Hackford, who also happens to be a filmmaker. He did Officer and the Gentleman. He's White Knights. He's done so many movies over the years. But he came to visit and talk to the family and acquired the music rights, the life story. He had the money, he could do it. The mother was very realistic. Connie was on the verge of a heart attack, actually. She had having heart problems. But she came back to life when this possibility came up of doing the movie. And she grieved for Richie from the moment that he was gone, like any mother would. But she was really zeroed in on him. And but she lived to see the movie. She was on the set every day. She was there for the premiere in LA at the Cinerama Dome, and then in Watsonville at their hometown theater. So she was happy, Again, it's achingly sensitive subject, but she was buried in the same grave with Richie. You go there today and they're buried in the same grave, It's amazing. But in any case, we got the rights. They came to us. So it was meant to be, I guess,
So there wasn't a lot of